The stars were cold and silent above New Haven. It was a small colony, tucked away on the edge of known space, far from the big powers and old empires. The people there lived simple lives. Farmers, miners, engineers, and families trying to make a home among the stars. They weren't rich and they weren't powerful, but they were human. A few weeks ago, the Galactic Council had made their decision. Earth and its colonies were not worth protecting. The humans were seen as loud, emotional, and too quick to fight. After a failed peace mission with the Krelth Dominion, the Council had washed their hands of humanity. Too risky, they said. Not ready. No one told the people of New Haven that directly. They found out through news feeds and broken transmissions. They didn't matter to the galaxy anymore. Then the attack came. It started with silence. First, all comms went dead. Then the sky lit up with fire. Ships dropped from the dark like stones burning through the clouds. They weren't human. They were sleek, black, fast. Krelth warships. The Krelth were tall, thin, and cruel. They did not ask questions. They did not offer surrender. They came to take New Haven's resources and kill anyone who stood in the way. People ran. Some tried to hide. Others tried to fight with whatever they had, hunting rifles, mining tools, even sticks. None of it mattered. The Krelth moved like ghosts, cutting through resistance with cold precision. In the middle of the chaos, a man named Eli Carter grabbed his rifle and ran toward the town square. He used to be a Marine, back when Earth still believed in armies. Now he was just a security officer, guarding supply lines and keeping order. But today he was a soldier again. "We need to hold this line," he shouted over the noise. Smoke filled the air. Buildings burned. People screamed around him. A handful of others joined in. Janice, a nurse who had picked up a gun. Luke, a young mechanic who hadn't finished training yet. And Maya Reed, a smart girl who worked with computers and machines. Maya ducked behind a wall and pulled out her tablet. "Comms are down. I can't reach orbit. If there's anyone left up there, they don't know what's happening." Eli fired a shot at a Krelth scout moving between buildings. It staggered, then disappeared into the smoke. "We're on our own," he said. Maya looked at him. "What do we do?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at the burning streets, the scared faces of civilians hiding in doorways. He saw a child crying in her mother's arms. He saw men and women standing with nothing but courage and fear. He knew what they had to do. "We fight," he said. Over the next hour, more people joined. Teachers, shopkeepers, pilots, even kids old enough to carry a weapon. They set up barricades, used cars as cover, and turned every building into a fortress. Maya hacked into the old defense grid, something left behind by a mining company years ago, and brought it back online. Automated turrets rose from the ground and opened fire. For the first time, the Krelth slowed down, but they didn't stop. Just when things looked darkest, a voice crackled through the static on Maya's radio. "This is Captain Nolan aboard the Atlanta. We read your distress signal. We're coming in hot." Nolan was an old Navy commander flying a medium-class cruiser that had seen better days. He was orbiting nearby when the attack began. He had orders not to interfere unless authorized by the Council. But watching New Haven burn, he made a choice. He broke formation and dove into the atmosphere. From the sky came streaks of light, orbital strikes. Nolan wasn't aiming to win a war. He was aiming to buy time. Krelth positions exploded in fire. Landing crafts were blown out of the sky. The tide shifted on just a little. When the dust settled, New Haven was damaged, but not destroyed. The Krelth had pulled back, surprised by the sudden resistance. Eli looked at the sky where the Atlanta had flown. "Someone finally remembered us," he said. Maya stood beside him, her face covered in soot, her eyes tired. "No," she said. "We remembered ourselves." Around them, survivors gathered. They were bruised, bleeding, and afraid, but they were alive. And for the first time, they realized something. They were not alone. They had each other. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The smoke still hung in the air over New Haven. Fires burned in the distance, and the ground was littered with wreckage. but the Krelth were gone. For now. Eli Carter stood at the edge of town, looking out over the broken land. His rifle was slung across his back and his uniform was torn and black with soot. Beside him, Maya Reed sat on a crate, her hands moving fast over her tablet. She was trying to fix what was left of the colony's comms. Anything? Eli asked. Maya shook her head. Nothing clear. Too much interference. If anyone else heard, us they're not saying. He nodded. He didn't like that answer, but it wasn't a surprise. The galaxy had turned its back on them. Only humans had come to help. Captain Nolan's ship, the Atlanta, had taken heavy damage during the orbital strike. It had landed a few miles outside the colony, barely holding together. Nolan himself had survived, but his crew was scattered and short on supplies. We need to get to him, Eli said. If he has anything left, we should use it before the Krelth come back. Mayo looked up. You think they'll come back? Eli didn't answer right away. He watched a group of survivors dragging a fallen Krelth scout toward the center of town. The alien was tall and thin, its body covered in dark armor. Its eyes were still open, cold and lifeless. Yeah, Eli said finally. They'll be back, bigger, stronger, ready. Around them, people worked hard to rebuild what they could. Homes, walls, barricades. Some were crying, others were silent. Everyone was tired, but they were alive. And more than that, they were angry. In the days that followed, the colony began to change. People who had never held a gun before learned how to use one. Farmers became scouts. Engineers built traps and defenses from scrap metal and old mining gear. Maya led a small team working on the old defense grid. She found ways to boost its power, using leftover energy cells from the Atlanta. Soon turrets were active again, better than before. We can hold longer next time, she told Eli. Good, he said, because there will be a next time. Then came the message. It came through late at night, weak and full of static, but clear enough. This is Earth Command, calling all human colonies. Do not surrender. We are forming a resistance. Eli, and Maya stared at the radio. Did you send that? She asked. No, Eli said. But someone out there is listening. It wasn't just New Haven anymore. Other colonies were sending word. Some had been attacked. Some had already started fighting, and now they were finding each other. Humans across the stars were waking up. They weren't going to wait for help that wouldn't come. They were going to fight. Captain Nolan arrived a few days later, limping and tired, but with a spark in his eye. Heard your little signal, he said to Eli. Looks like we're not alone after all. Eli smiled. Never were. Just took us a while to realize it. Nolan looked at the rebuilt defenses, the new weapons, the people training in the fields. You've done good work here, he said. Not done yet, Eli replied. That night, under the cold light of distant stars, a small group gathered in the town hall. Maps were spread out. Names were read. Messages were sent. They called themselves the Ghost Fleet. Not because they were dead, but because the galaxy thought they were. And now, they were going to prove otherwise. No more waiting. No more begging. From this day forward, they would fight their own war. For each other. For home. For humanity. The Ghost Fleet was growing. It wasn't much at first. A few old ships patched together with scrap metal and borrowed parts. Some had seen better days. Others barely held together in space. But they flew under one banner now. We stand alone. Eli. Carter stood on the bridge of a small frigate called the Hammer. It used to be a transport ship before the war. Now it had guns on its wings and a crew of humans who refused to back down. Beside him, Maya Reed worked on her tablet, trying to boost their comms range. She was good with machines, maybe the best they had. Still picking up signals from other colonies, she said. Some are fighting, others are asking for help. Eli looked out the window. Beyond the glass, stars burned cold and silent. Behind them, New Haven was safe. For now. But they all knew it wouldn't last. We can't save everyone, he said. But we can show them how to fight. They weren't soldiers or generals. Most of them had never been in a real battle until the Krelth came. But now they were learning fast. Every mistake cost lives. Every win gave them hope. On another ship, the Wraith, a young pilot named Danny Ruiz checked his controls. He had flown cargo runs before the war. Now he flew missions that made the old Navy pilots nervous. "You ready?" asked Jesse Porter. His wingman, he grinned. Always. They launched into space with a small group of ships. Their mission, hit a Krelth supply line near an abandoned mining station. It wasn't a big target, but it was important. The Krelth moved fast. They had better tech, better weapons, and better ships. But the humans had something else. They didn't run. Danny dove through a field of floating debris, dodging enemy fire. Jesse followed close behind, laying down covering shots. The rest of the team hit the station hard, planting charges on fuel tanks and storage bays. Then they ran. The explosion lit up space like a sun. The Krelth lost half their supplies. The humans lost one ship. It was worth it. Back at base, Eli met with Captain Nolan. The older man was tired but still sharp. "Good work today," Nolan said. "But this is only the start." Eli nodded. "We need more ships, more pilots, more people willing to fight." Nolan smiled. "Then let's find them." Over the next few weeks, word spread across human space. Stories of the Ghost Fleet reached even the farthest colonies. They weren't winning every battle, but they were winning enough. And that was something new. For years, humans had been told they weren't ready, that they were too wild, too emotional, too dangerous. The Galactic Council had kept them out. The Krelth had tried to erase them. But now the galaxy was starting to see what humans could do when they stood together. In a small town on a distant world, a boy watched the stars and whispered, "I want to fly like them." On another colony, a farmer picked up a rifle and trained with others in secret. In orbit above a forgotten moon, a group of ex-miners turned their cargo hauler into a fighter ship. The Resistance wasn't just a fleet. It was a movement. And it was growing. Maya sat beside Eli as they reviewed the latest reports. "More ships joining every day," she said. "Some are Old Navy, some are civvies. All of them want to fight." Eli looked at the list. Names he didn't know, faces he hadn't seen. But they were all human. "Good," he said. "Because we're not done yet." Outside, the sky was dark. But in the distance, lights blinked. Ships taking off, heading into the unknown. They didn't have fancy armor or alien weapons. They had each other, and that was enough. The Ghost Fleet was no longer just a name. It was real. Dozens of ships now flew under its banner. Some were fast, some were old. All of them carried humans who had decided to fight back. Life aboard the ships wasn't easy. Food was short. Sleep was shorter. But they kept moving, always ahead. Always hunting. Danny Ruiz sat in his cockpit staring at the stars through a cracked window. Beside him, Jesse Porter leaned against the hull, checking her gear. "You nervous?" she asked. He smiled. Always. They were about to drop behind enemy lines again. This time their target was a Krelth supply hub orbiting a dead planet. If they could destroy it, they'd cut off fuel and weapons from half the Krelth fleet. It wouldn't win the war, but it would hurt. Eli Carter stood on the bridge of the Hammer, watching as the fleet formed up. Maya Reed sat nearby, her fingers dancing over her tablet. "Cloaks are online," she said. "We'll be invisible until we hit." "Good," Eli said. "Then let's not waste it." The plan was simple. Get in fast, strike hard, and disappear before the Krelth knew what hit them. They jumped into the system under full stealth. The Wraith, Hammer, and a dozen other ships moved like ghosts through space. Then came the silence. No chatter, no noise. Just the hum of engines and the soft blinking of lights. They reached the edge of the hub undetected. It was a massive station floating near the ruins of a broken moon. Fuel tanks, cargo bays, and defense turrets lined its sides. Jesse's voice came over the comms. "Ready when you are." Eli gave the order. Ships split off in different directions. Bombs dropped. Missiles fired. Explosions lit up the dark. Maya hacked into the station's systems, disabling alarms and turning defense guns on each other. Danny dove low, skimming the outer hull. He dropped his payload and pulled up hard, just as fire licked at his tail. Then came the chaos. The Krelth finally noticed them. Fighters launched. Turrets turned. Warning lights flashed red across the sky. Time to go. Pull out, Eli shouted. Get clear. Ships burned away from the station, dodging enemy fire. One didn't make it. A small corvette exploded in a burst of light. Maya watched it go, eyes tight with anger. We lost the Fox, she said. Eli didn't answer right away. He looked at the screen. The station was burning. The mission had worked, but the cost was high. As they pulled back, the hammer took a hit. Alarms blared. Smoke filled the control room. We're losing power, someone shouted. Nolan's voice came over the comms. Fall back to the rally point. I'll cover you, Eli wanted to argue. But he knew better. Nolan had made his choice. The older captain turned his damaged cruiser toward the enemy, drawing fire so the others could escape. Stay safe, Eli whispered. Back at base, the survivors gathered, tired, bruised. Some crying, others silent. They had won, but it didn't feel like it. Maya sat alone, staring at her tablet. Danny walked up and handed her a cup of hot drink. Not much, he said. But it's warm. She smiled faintly. Thanks. He sat beside her. You did good out there, he said. Without you, we'd have lost more than we did. She looked at him. Do you ever wonder if it's worth it? He thought for a moment, then nodded. Every day, he said. But every time I think about giving up, I remember why we started. She didn't answer right away. She looked around at the others, pilots, engineers, soldiers, all of them tired, all of them still here because they hadn't run, because they were still fighting, and that meant something. Outside, new ships landed, fresh recruits, new faces, more hands willing to help. The Ghost Fleet was still growing, and even after a hard loss, they weren't done yet. Eli stood up and walked to the front of the room. Listen up, he said. This war isn't over. We lost good people today. But we showed the Krelth that we don't quit. He looked at each face in the room. So tomorrow we fly again. And no one argued. Because they knew. Humans didn't give up. Even when the galaxy had given up on them. They kept going. Because that's what they did. The Ghost Fleet was flying blind. They had won battles before. They had hit hard and disappeared into the dark. But now, someone had told the Krelth exactly where to strike, and it almost cost them everything. It started with a trap. A message came, through from a human colony under attack. The distress call was real. Screaming voices, burning buildings, desperate people begging for help. Eli Carter stood on the hammer, reading the report. Maya Reed sat beside him, her face tight with worry. This doesn't feel right, she said. Eli frowned. Doesn't matter. If they're in trouble, we go. He gave the order. The fleet jumped into the system. They were met by fire. Krelth warships were already waiting. Dozens of them, hiding behind asteroids, cloaked until the last second. They dropped out of stealth like wolves closing in on prey. Ambush, someone shouted. Ships exploded before they could turn. Fighters burned in space. The hammer took a direct hit to the engine. We need to pull back, Jesse Porter yelled. Over comms. No, Eli shouted. We hold. But there was nothing left to hold. The fleet was scattered. Some ships ran. Others didn't make it. The Krelth moved in fast, cutting off escape routes. Then came the betrayal. In the middle of the chaos, a voice cut through the comms. Calm, clear and familiar. Ghost Fleet, this is Gabe Torres. Stand down. You've lost. Eli froze. Gabe had been one of them. A leader. A fighter. He helped build the resistance from nothing. Now he was standing with the enemy. Gabe? Maya whispered. What are you doing? Gabe's voice was cold. Doing what makes sense. We can't win this war. But I made a deal. If you surrender, they'll let some of us live. Eli felt his hands tighten into fists. "You sold us out," he said. Gabe didn't answer. Instead, the Krelth launched another wave. The hammer barely escaped. Engines smoking, shields failing. Half the crew was gone. The rest were broken. Back at base, the survivors gathered in silence. Smoke filled the air. Blood stained the floors. People sat with empty eyes, too tired to cry. Gabe had given the Krelth everything: ship movements, codes, plans, safe zones. And now, the ghost fleet was nearly destroyed. Eli walked through the wreckage. He saw Danny Ruiz sitting alone, staring at the ground. Jesse leaned against a wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. Maya sat at a terminal trying to reach anyone still alive. "Nothing," she said. "Just static." Eli looked at her. "Did we lose everyone?" She shook her head slowly. "Not everyone, but not enough. Morale was gone. Hope was gone. Gabe's betrayal had done more than destroy ships. It had broken something inside them. For the first time since the war began, the humans didn't know what to do. Some wanted to run. Some wanted to hide. Some even talked about giving up. But then a soft beep came from Maya's console. A message, weak, broken, but real. It was from Captain Nolan. "If you get this, come to Iron Will. I have a plan." Maya's eyes lit up. "He's alive!" Eli rushed to her side. "Where is he?" She checked the coordinates. "Far out, near a black hole. Used to be a research station." Eli didn't hesitate. "We go." Some of the others looked at him like he was crazy. "Why?" someone asked. "So we can die out there too?" Eli looked around the room. Tired faces. Scared eyes. "Because if we stay here, we die anyway," he said. "Gabe thinks we're done. The Krelth think we're done. Maybe the whole galaxy thinks we're done." He stepped forward. "But we're not." Maya stood beside him. "Nolan wouldn't send that message unless he had something worth fighting for." Danny got up slowly. "I'm in." Jesse followed. "Me too." One by one, the survivors stood. They were few. They were broken. But they were still human, and they weren't done yet. Outside, the last of the ghost fleet prepared for launch. No fanfare, no cheers, just quiet determination. They had been betrayed. They had been beaten, but they hadn't fallen. And as their ships lifted into the sky, heading toward the unknown, one thing became clear. Even when the world turned its back on them, humans never quit. The station called Iron Will floated near the edge of a black hole. It was old, dark, and broken-looking from the outside. Most ships avoided it. The pull of the black hole made it dangerous to reach. But for that reason, it was also hidden. Perfect for hiding. Eli Carter stepped off the hammer and into the cold halls of the station. Behind him came Maya Reed, Danny Ruiz, Jesse Porter, and the last few survivors of the Ghost Fleet. They were tired, hungry, angry. They had lost too much, but they were still here. Captain Nolan waited for them inside. He looked older than Eli, remembered. His uniform was worn. His eyes were heavy with loss, but there was fire in them still. "You made it," Nolan said. Eli nodded. Barely. Nolan led them through the dim corridors. The lights flickered. Wires hung from the walls. This place hadn't been used in years. "Why bring us here?" Maya asked. Nolan stopped at a large door and turned to face them. "Because we're not done," he said. "And if we want to fight again, we need to change." Change wasn't just words. It was action. Over the next few weeks, Iron Will became more than a hideout. It became a base, a training ground, a home. Eli helped train new recruits. Kids who had never held a gun before, pilots who barely knew how to fly under pressure. Maya worked nonstop, fixing machines, building better weapons, and teaching others how to hack alien tech. Danny and Jesse flew every mission they could. They trained new pilots, pushing them harder than any academy ever had. They didn't have time for soft lessons. Out here, mistakes meant death. People came from all over human space. Some had lost their homes. Some had lost their families. All of them wanted revenge. And slowly, the ghost fleet began to rise again. Not the same fleet, not the same people, but stronger, meaner, ready. Maya sat in the control room one night, her fingers moving fast over the console. She had been working on something big, something she hadn't told anyone about yet. Then, a beep. She leaned closer. "Eli," she whispered. "Come here." He walked over, tired but alert. "What is it?" She pointed at the screen. "I cracked it." He frowned. "Cracked what?" "Krelth code," she said. "I've been breaking bits of it for weeks. Finally got through the firewall." Eli's eyes widened. "What did you find?" She pulled up a map. "Their homeworld," she said. "This is where they come from, where they make their ships, where they send their orders." Eli stared at the image. For the first time since the war began, they had something real. A target. He turned to Maya. "We need to tell the others." Soon everyone gathered in the main hall. The room was packed. People stood in doorways. Some sat on crates or leaned against walls. Eli stood at the front holding a small tablet. Maya beside him. He looked at the crowd. "We've lost a lot," he said. "Friends, family, homes, ships. Some of you don't even know why you're still here." He paused. "I do." He held up the tablet. The map lit up the room. "This is where the Krelth come from. This is where we hit back." Silence filled the room. Then, slowly, someone clapped. Then another, then more. Hope was back. Not because they had won, but because they had found a reason to keep fighting. Outside, the stars burned cold, but inside iron will. Something else was burning, something hotter, something louder, something human. And it wasn't going out anytime soon. The ghost fleet moved through space like a shadow. No lights, no signals, no noise. They were heading deep into enemy territory, not to hide, not to run, to strike. Eli Carter stood on the hammer, watching the stars blur past as they jumped from system to system. Beside him, Maya Reed worked quietly on her tablet, checking their route and making sure the fleet stayed hidden. "Still tracking?" Eli asked. She nodded. "Yes, we're clear for now." He looked out the window. Behind them were weeks of hard work, training, building, planning. Ahead of them was the Krelth heartland and war. Danny Ruiz sat in his cockpit, breathing slow and steady. He had flown many missions before, but this one felt different. Heavier. Jesse Porter's voice came over comms. "Ready when you are, Danny." He smiled faintly. Always. They weren't the only ones. Across the fleet, pilots, soldiers, engineers, and fighters all prepared for what was coming. This wasn't just another raid. It was the first real push toward victory. The Krelth homeworld was protected by massive fleets, thick defenses, and powerful weapons. It was supposed to be untouchable, but humans didn't believe in untouchable. They believed in fighting back. The first strike came at a small outpost orbiting a dead moon. It was a relay station, a key point in the Krelth communication. Network Eli led the ground team, 20 men and women in stolen armor and patched-up gear. Maya hacked into the systems from orbit, disabling alarms and turning turrets on each other. Then the humans dropped in. Guns fired. Explosions lit up the dark. The Krelth fought back, but they were surprised by how fast and how hard the humans hit. Eli moved through the halls with his rifle tight in hand. Smoke filled the air. Bodies lay on the floor. Some human, some alien. He kicked open a door and found a control room full of Krelth officers. They barely had time to react. "Clear," someone shouted. Maya's voice came over comms. "Good job. Now get out, we're blowing it." Eli turned and ran, pulling the last soldier with him. Seconds later, the base exploded behind them. Mission complete. But it was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, the Ghost Fleet kept moving, hitting supply lines, destroying bases, freeing prisoners, taking over old stations. And every time the Krelth got angrier, they sent more ships, stronger defenses, faster fighters, but the humans kept coming. Danny and Jesse flew more missions than ever, sometimes together, sometimes alone, always pushing harder. One night after a long mission, Danny sat outside their ship, staring at the stars. Jesse walked over and sat beside him. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Just tired." She looked at him. "We're winning, aren't we?" He thought about that. Then he said, "Not yet, but we're making them afraid." And it was true. The Krelth started calling them names. The fire that won't die. The ghosts who never stay dead. The ones who don't know when to stop. And the galaxy began to notice. Some still hated humans. Others feared them, but no one ignored them anymore. On a distant world, far from the war, a child watched a news feed and whispered, "I want to fight like them." On another planet, an alien diplomat closed a report and said, "Maybe we should talk to them before they take more." Even the Galactic Council started paying attention, but the humans didn't care about politics. They cared about survival, about home, about each other. Back on the hammer, Eli stood with Maya, looking at a new map. "We're getting closer," she said. He nodded. "Good, because we're not stopping." Outside, the fleet waited. Ships filled with humans who had nothing left except each other, and they were ready for the next mission, for the next battle, for the final push. Because, even though the road was long, they knew one thing. Humans don't quit. Not now, not ever. The Krelth homeworld was a fortress. It floated in deep space surrounded by hundreds of warships. Massive towers rose into the sky, glowing with cold alien light. The planet was not just home. It was command central for the entire Krelth Empire. And now the Ghost Fleet was coming. Eli Carter stood on the hammer, looking at the enemy through the front window. His face was tired, but his eyes were sharp. Beside him, Maya Reed worked on her tablet, checking the final plan one last time. "We're close," she said, "but they know we're coming." Eli nodded. "Good. Let them see us." They weren't hiding anymore. This wasn't a raid or a sneak attack. This was the end game. Danny Ruiz sat in his cockpit, breathing slow and steady. Jessie Porter sat next to him, tightening her gloves. "Ready?" she asked. He smiled. "Always." Across the fleet, ships lined up. Old, new, patched up, stolen, all flying under the same banner. "We stand alone." Captain Nolan's voice came over comms. "Listen up. This won't be easy. We'll lose people. We'll lose ships. But if we make it through..." He paused. "This ends today." Eli stepped forward. "No more running. No more hiding. This is our fight. Our home. Our people." He looked out at the stars. "So let's finish it." The fleet jumped. Space lit up with fire. Krelth fighters dove from carriers like swarms of wasps. Beams of energy cut through the dark. Ships exploded on both sides. The hammer took heavy fire. Alarms blared. Smoke filled the bridge. "Shields down to 30, someone shouted. "Returning fire," another yelled. Maya worked fast, hacking into Krelth systems, trying to break their defenses. "I need more time," she cried. "Make it happen," Eli shouted back. Outside, Danny and Jesse led the fighter squadrons through the chaos. They dove between enemy ships, firing missiles and dodging return shots. "Left! Left!" Jesse called. Danny rolled hard, barely missing a beam that burned through empty space behind him. "Too close," he muttered. "Stay sharp," she said. "We've got work to do." On the surface, Eli and a small team prepared to drop. Their mission: get inside the main control center and shut down the planetary shield. If they could do that, the fleet would have a clear shot at the heart of the Krelth world. The dropship flew low, skimming the tops of tall towers. Explosions rocked the city below. Fires burned everywhere. Then came the crash. Smoke. Noise. Pain. Eli opened his eyes. Blood dripped from his forehead. Maya was beside him, coughing. "We're down," she said. They climbed out, guns ready. Krelth. Soldiers were waiting. Bullets flew. Grenades exploded. Bodies fell. Eli moved fast, pushing forward with his team. Maya followed, carrying a small pack full of tech. "Control room is ahead," she said. They ran through broken halls, past dead enemies, toward the heart of the planet. Inside the control room, Maya dropped to her knees and pulled out her tablet. Fingers flew across the screen. Almost there. Outside, the battle raged. Nolan's ship took a direct hit. Flames burst from its side. The captain leaned forward, gripping the controls. "Give me everything you've got," he whispered. He pushed the ship into the largest Krelth carrier, slamming into it at full speed. The explosion lit up the sky. Maya looked up as the shockwave passed. "Nolan," she whispered. Eli put a hand on her shoulder. "Finish it," he said. Tears in her eyes, Maya hit the final key. The shields went down. Cheers broke out across the comms. "We're in!" someone shouted. Eli looked out the window. The sky was full of human ships, and now, nothing stood between them and victory. "Now," he said, "we finish this." Outside, the Ghost Fleet roared in triumph, and the galaxy heard them. The Krelth homeworld burned. Not all of it. Not every building, not every life. But the heart of their empire was broken. The control towers fell. The command centers were destroyed. The great fleets that once ruled the stars were scattered, or lost. And when the dust settled, only one truth remained. Humans had won. Eli Carter stood at the edge of what used to be the main Krelth command center. Smoke rose into the sky. Fires still smoldered. The air smelled like metal and ash. He looked down at his hands. They were tired, scarred. They had held weapons, saved lives, buried friends. He turned as Maya Reed walked up beside him. Her face was covered in soot, her eyes red from lack of sleep and too many losses. "It's done," she said quietly. Eli nodded. Yeah. They had come light years from New Haven, from a small colony no one cared about. Now they stood on the ruins of an empire. The Ghost Fleet floated above, damaged but alive. Ships that should have been scrap were flying again. Pilots who should have died came home. Danny Ruiz sat on the wing of his fighter, looking out at the burning city. "Jesse," Porter leaned against the hull beside him. "Didn't think we'd make it," Danny said. She smiled faintly. "We never do." Below them, freed prisoners walked free. Some were human. Others were aliens who had suffered under the Krelth. They didn't know what to say to the people who saved them. But they knew one thing. Humans were not what they had heard. They were not reckless, not wild, not dangerous. They were brave. They were strong. They were here to stay. Back on Earth, news spread fast. The Galactic Council watched in silence as reports came in. Humans had done what no other species had done, taken down a major power without help. Some still called them trouble. Some still feared them. But others reached out. Offers of peace. Offers of trade. Offers of alliance. For the first time, humanity was not asking for a seat at the table. They had built their own. At Iron Will, the survivors gathered, old faces, new ones. Those who had started this war and those who had joined along the way. Eli stood before them. "We were told we weren't ready," he said. "Told we were too loud, too angry, too different." He looked around the room. "But when no one else would fight, we did." Maya stepped forward. "We didn't win because we had the best weapons," she said, "or the fastest ships. We won because we didn't give up." Danny raised a hand. "And because we fly like hell." People laughed. Tired. Sore. But still smiling. Because they were alive. Because they had done something no one thought possible. Because they were human. Weeks passed. The fleet returned home. Some stayed in space. Others went back to their families. Captain Nolan was gone. But his name lived on. In schools on Earth, children learned about the Ghost Fleet, about Eli, Maya, Danny, Jesse, and all the others who refused to quit. On New Haven, a statue was built. Not of kings or heroes. Just a simple figure looking up at the stars. Beneath it, the words read, "Everyone else gave up on us. Only the humans fought for what was right." And across human space, new recruits trained. New ships flew. New stories were told. Stories of courage, of hope, of a people who, when the galaxy turned its back, stood tall, fought hard, and won, because even when the world forgets you, humans never forget themselves, and they never stop fighting, not for power, not for glory, but for each other, for home, for what is right.